The mercenary ship Vor's edge slipped from hyperspace like a blade through silk, its hull scarred by years of violence. Inside, Kraath Vel'Thor sat in silence, armor plates hissing as they locked into place around his scaled frame. The faint hum of the ship's systems was the only sound, steady, obedient, like a heartbeat he controlled. He needed no crew. He trusted no one. Across the cockpit display, a holographic image flickered. A human face, male, mid-30s, eyes sharp and unyielding even through static interference. Dane Ryker. The bounty description scrolled below. Terrorist, saboteur, former operative of Earth's defunct Planetary Defense Corps. Wanted alive for interrogation by the Mercenary cartel. The reward made Kraath pause. A sum like that meant one thing. The target had cost someone powerful a great deal of trouble. Kraath's tongue flicked against the air, tasting the cold tang of recycled oxygen. He'd heard of humans before, soft-skinned, impulsive, emotional. Primitive, really. But their unpredictability had earned them a reputation that unsettled even hardened mercenaries. Stories spread in backwater ports, told in low voices over sour drink. Entire squads vanishing after hunting a single human. Fleets burned from within. They called it human madness, as if insanity itself was their survival instinct. Kraath dismissed it as myth. Fear exaggerated. Weak species always inflated the legend of others. Yet still, as he studied Ryker's expression, calm, almost defiant, he felt something he didn't like. Curiosity. Pharaoh's 9, he murmured. His target had last been traced to the abandoned mining colony orbiting a dying red star. Radiation storms there would cripple most detection tech. To Kraath, that only meant fewer witnesses. He entered coordinates, and the Vor's edge obeyed, vanishing once more into the fold of light. When the ship broke atmosphere, the colony spread below him. Shattered domes, collapsed tunnels, skeletal cranes frozen in rust. A ghost world. Perfect hunting ground. He activated the comms scanner, cycling through static until a faint distress beacon crackled through. Human frequency. He smirked. Too easy. Kraath descended, landing amid dust clouds that swirled like ash. His boots struck the ground with dull metallic thuds. He scanned for movement. Nothing but wind pushing through hollow structures. The air was thin, but his armor compensated. The silence pressed against him like a living thing. He moved through the ruins, methodical, every step deliberate. His sensors pulsed with faint readings, residual heat signatures, scattered electromagnetic interference. Someone had been here recently. Maybe Ryker. Maybe bait. Either way, the chase had begun. A flicker of movement to his right. Kraath swung his rifle, finger brushing the trigger, but it was only a torn flag. Earth's emblem, sun-bleached and shredded, flapping weakly from a bent pole. He tore it free without a thought. Another relic of a dying world. Then his visor blinked, signal detected. He turned toward a darkened structure ahead, a crumbling control tower still intact enough to hold secrets. The beacon grew stronger as he approached. Inside, old consoles blinked feebly, their power drawn from portable cells. The distress transmitter sat at the center, looping the same message. This is Dane Ryker of Earth Command. Requesting evac. Coordinates follow. Kraath knelt, analyzing the signal. The message was old, hours, maybe days, but the energy cell was new. Someone had replaced it recently. His nostrils flared. You're close, he whispered. Then the transmitter chirped once more and exploded. The blast was contained but sharp, enough to send Kraath sprawling backward, armor scraping across metal. His sensors flared red. Minor damage. He roared, fury igniting his cold control. When he looked up, smoke coiled through the air, and a voice crackled through his helmet speaker. You should have stayed in orbit, Hunter. The voice was calm, confident, undeniably human. Kraath's eyes narrowed. Ryker. Down here, the voice continued. You don't hunt humans. We hunt you. The channel cut out. Kraath rose slowly, shaking off dust. So this was how it would be. The stories, it seemed, were not just tales told in dim bars. He checked his weapon, its barrel glowing faintly from the earlier blast, and scanned the ruins again. No sign of movement. Only empty corridors and long shadows. But something had changed. The silence now carried weight, intention. The human was watching, testing, setting the tone. Kraath activated his drone. The small sphere whirred to life, rising into the air, its red sensors sweeping the area. It pulsed once, twice, and then blinked out. No signal. Just gone. Kraath froze. He reached out through his neural link, found nothing but static. Then, from the far end of the corridor, the same drone rolled back toward him, blackened and twisted, as if crushed by unseen hands. The mercenary let out a slow exhale. Not fear, focus. Humans had a reputation for tricks, for guerrilla cunning. He respected the strategy, even admired it in a distant way. But he was not prey. He moved again, slower now. Senses sharpened. A sound echoed through the distance. A metallic scrape. A step, deliberate. He turned toward it, weapon ready, but saw nothing. Then a flicker of light from above drew his gaze. A single laser, dancing across his chest plate. Kraath dove behind cover just as a shot rang out, the wall behind him erupting in sparks. He glanced down at the impact mark, a sniper's round, perfectly placed. The human was toying with him. He grinned, teeth sharp and glistening. "Good," he murmured. "Let's see how long your tricks keep you alive." He darted through the ruins, each movement calculated, his mind mapping trajectories, probabilities, cover points. But the human anticipated him. Another shot grazed his shoulder. Another shattered the stone near his head. The sniper's precision was unnerving. Too clean for desperation. Too calm for panic. Finally, the firing stopped. Smoke drifted lazily through shafts of dying sunlight. Kraath crouched, scanning, but no further shots came. Only a faint echo, footsteps retreating deeper into the colony. The human was leading him somewhere. Kraath checked his armor, noted the dents, the minor wounds. Acceptable losses. He activated his internal recorder, documenting every fragment of data, the voice, the patterns, the weapon signature. This was no common soldier. This was someone trained to make predators bleed. And Kraath would find him. He looked once more toward the fading horizon, where long shadows stretched over the bones of the colony. "You can run, human," he said quietly, "but I always finish the hunt." From somewhere unseen, faintly carried by the wind, came a single whispering reply, amused, almost kind. "Not this hunt." The ruins whispered, as if the dead themselves murmured warnings through the dust. Kraath moved cautiously now, no longer the overconfident hunter who had landed expecting an easy victory. His breathing came through the helmet in slow mechanical pulses, each exhale fogging the cracked display. The human had vanished, but his presence filled every shadow. He scanned the desolate streets, thermal sensors flickering across ruined buildings. Faint heat trails appeared and disappeared, phantoms, misleading, taunting. The human was playing with him, turning the entire colony into a labyrinth of deceit. Kraath respected that level of cunning, even as it stoked his anger. On other worlds, wars were decided by brute force and orbital fire. But here, on this dying planet, the battle had become something more personal, a duel between instinct and intellect. He reached a courtyard where rusted machinery leaned like broken monuments. The ground was littered with shattered helmets and bone fragments. Scorch marks stained the walls, signs of an old firefight. A memory, maybe, of Ryker's fallen comrades. Kraath touched one of the charred helmets with a clawed finger. The visor bore the emblem of Earth's Defense Corps. Humans fighting to the last, even when hope had long since abandoned them. A faint sound cut through the air. Metal scraping against stone. He turned sharply, rifle raised. Nothing. Only wind. Then, a distant laugh, brief, distorted through the comms channel. "You move heavy," Ryker's voice said, calm and unhurried. "Every step tells me where you are." Kraath pivoted, voice low and controlled. "You hide behind ghosts, human." Face me. A pause, then the reply. Why would I? You're not ready yet. The calm cut out. Kraath cursed under his breath. He fired a burst into the shadows just to hear the sound of his weapon echo. When the energy bolts faded, the silence returned, thicker than before. He began to circle the area, marking walls with ultraviolet paint only his visor could read. He'd sweep the colony quadrant by quadrant, methodical as always. Yet every time he turned a corner, something was wrong. Objects slightly moved, drones deactivated, tripwires set where none existed minutes before. The human was always ahead of him. A soft chime from his armor drew his attention. His system had intercepted a weak signal, a heartbeat sensor feed from one of his earlier drones, still active somewhere underground. Kraath opened the feed. It showed movement. A humanoid figure descending deeper into the colony's tunnels. Got you, he muttered. He made his way down through a crumbling access shaft, stepping over hanging cables and rusted ladders. The tunnels below were dark, damp, and reeking of decay. His boots sank into layers of ash and dust. Lights on his wrist flickered, casting pale beams across walls scarred with graffiti. Some were human phrases, others crude sketches, faces twisted in pain, words scrawled in blood-red paint. Never hunt what you don't understand. A low growl rumbled in Kraath's chest. He was being studied, tested like prey. That thought unsettled him more than the darkness itself. He advanced further, rifle steady, sensors active. Then something pinged, a faint motion alert from his rear flank. He spun, firing instinctively, but his shots struck nothing but empty air. His radar displayed the movement again, this time from the opposite direction. Another decoy. The human was manipulating his sensors, feeding him false data that required proximity and access to his signal encryption. Kraath realized with cold clarity, Ryker had breached his comms system hours ago. Every scan, every map, every attempt at detection was being used against him. A sudden flash erupted from above, a pulse grenade. It detonated with a blinding surge of light. Kraath staggered, armor systems glitching, vision momentarily fried. When he regained focus, the corridor was filled with static haze, and something new was etched into the wall in crude alien script. Still think we're weak? Kraath tore the message away in fury. He smashed his gauntlet against the wall until it cracked. Pain flared through his arm, grounding his rage. He stood there, chest heaving, surrounded by silence again. For a long moment he listened. The hum of his armor, the faint drip of condensed moisture. Then a voice right behind him. You breathe too loud. He spun and fired, but hit only a flickering projection. A holographic decoy, grainy, life-sized, smiling faintly before it vanished. The voice, however, continued, now echoing through the tunnels. I've seen your kind before. Big.
Loud.
Always certain that strength wins the day. It never does. Not with us. Kraath steadied his breathing. You call this strength human? Hiding? Whispering in the dark. The voice replied with a quiet amusement. You'll understand soon. We don't hide. We wait. Static swallowed the channel again. Kraath stood motionless, then began walking forward. Step by deliberate step, his eyes scanning every surface. The human wanted him disoriented, but he would not give in. He'd find the signal source and crush whatever coward's trick Ryker thought would delay him. He followed the tunnel deeper until it opened into a vast chamber, an old reactor hall. Broken conduits hung from the ceiling like veins torn from a body. In the center lay something familiar. One of his drones, intact but powered off. He approached cautiously. The machine suddenly flared to life, its screen displaying a single recorded message. Dane Ryker's face appeared, unshaven, tired, eyes burning with controlled rage. This is what happens when you hunt us, the human said. We don't fight for victory. We fight for the lesson you'll remember. The drone exploded. The blast hurled Kraath backward, his armor smoking, the sound reverberating through the hollow hall. He staggered to his feet, vision trembling. Damage reports flooded his HUD, fractured plating, minor internal bleeding, communication array compromised. He should have felt anger. Instead, something colder settled in a slow, calculating respect. The human had every chance to kill him with that blast. He hadn't. He was shaping the hunt, teaching him, testing him. Kraath limped toward the exit, pain burning along his side. He stopped at the tunnel mouth, gazing back at the ruins of the reactor chamber. The human's words replayed in his mind like a ritual chant. "We fight for the lesson you'll remember." He exited into open air once more. The red star above the colony was sinking, flooding the ruins with dying light. Dust glimmered like embers around him. The silence was no longer emptiness, it was deliberate. The human was close again, watching, waiting for him to make the next move. Kraath raised his weapon toward the horizon and spoke softly, his voice low, dangerous, almost reverent. "You're no prey, Ryker. You're something else entirely." No answer came, but a faint shimmer appeared far ahead, a flash of metal vanishing between the ruins. Kraath's lips curled into a slow grin. Kraath moved through the ruins like a wounded beast, his breathing heavy, the edges of his vision pulsing with red diagnostic warnings. Each movement sent a jolt of pain through his ribs where the last explosion had cracked the plating. But pain meant focus. Pain meant he was still alive, and that the human hadn't finished the game yet. The colony had changed with the night. The dying red sun had fallen below the horizon, and now the world glowed faintly beneath the dim auroras of the radiation storms. The air shimmered, thick with static. Kraath's sensors struggled to stabilize. His helmet flickered with intermittent power. Half his displays had gone dark. It was as if the planet itself wanted him blind. He pressed on. Somewhere ahead, the human was still moving, calculating, watching. Kraath could almost sense the rhythm of Ryker's mind, a predator's pulse disguised beneath patience. Every trap, every ambush, every whisper had purpose. Ryker wasn't surviving. He was controlling. Kraath found a half-collapsed bunker and forced the rusted door open with one arm. The interior smelled of burnt fuel and human sweat. A makeshift camp, recent. A small heat source, still glowing faintly. He scanned the walls and saw maps pinned with old nails, crude marks drawn in chalk, paths, ambush points, patrol routes. His own movements, tracked and predicted. For a long moment, he stared at the map. The realization hit like a hammer. Ryker had been studying him long before he landed. This wasn't a random encounter, it was a setup. The human had wanted him here. Behind him, something clicked. A weapon's safety, disengaging. "Step away from the table," a voice said. Kraath turned slowly. Dane Ryker stood in the doorway, rifle raised, his face half-lit by the bunker's faint glow. He looked smaller than Kraath expected, shorter, leaner, his human muscles taut with exhaustion. His armor was stripped down to scraps of plating and bandages. Blood streaked his temple, but his eyes were sharp, burning with that strange human intensity that seemed to mock pain itself. Kraath studied him in silence. This was the ghost that had haunted him for 2 days. This fragile creature who had turned a fortress of steel into a graveyard of illusions. He almost smiled. "You could have run," Kraath said, voice low and resonant. Ryker's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "I don't run." They stood there, two predators measuring distance, waiting for the other to move first. Kraath saw the tremor in the man's hand, fatigue, not fear. It gave him no comfort. A tired human was often the most dangerous kind. "I misjudged you," Kraath said. "I thought humans were loud, reckless, and weak." Ryker's tone was quiet. "Most of us are. But the ones who live long enough to get hunted, we learn." Kraath moved first, fast as lightning despite his injuries. The rifle shot went wide, grazing his shoulder. He slammed into Ryker, both crashing into the wall. The weapon clattered to the floor. Ryker elbowed him hard, twisting free, grabbing a knife from his belt and plunging it between armor plates. Kraath roared, backhanding him across the room. Ryker hit the wall, gasping, but forced himself up again. "You don't get tired, do you?" he said between breaths. "I don't stop," Kraath replied. He charged. Ryker rolled aside, grabbed his fallen rifle, and fired point-blank into Kraath's chest. The plasma round tore through armor, searing flesh beneath. Kraath stumbled, but didn't fall. He grabbed the rifle barrel mid-shot and crushed it in his hand, molten metal dripping between his claws. The bunker shook with the sound of their struggle. Metal against bone, fury against will. Ryker darted low, slashing again at weak joints, moving with desperate precision. Kraath caught him by the throat, lifting him effortlessly off the ground. "You fought well," Kraath growled. "But this ends now." Ryker's face was pale, blood streaking his jaw. His voice came out rough, defiant. "You still think it's about me?" He opened his hand, revealing a small detonator. Kraath froze, grip tightening. The human smile was faint, grim, almost peaceful. "You've been in my kill box since the first signal," Ryker said. "You walked right where I needed you." Kraath's eyes darted around the bunker. Bare walls, no visible explosives. Then his helmet flickered, detecting something buried beneath the floor. Faint energy readings, dozens of them, surrounding the structure. "You wouldn't." Ryker pressed the trigger. The blast didn't erupt. Instead, a surge of light filled the room, and the floor buckled. The explosion was directed downward, collapsing the chamber beneath them into the tunnels below. Both fell through a storm of dust and fire, landing hard among twisted steel and debris. Kraath dragged himself up, coughing smoke. His armor was ruined, most systems dead. Ryker lay a few meters away, limp, trying to rise. The detonator had been half a bluff, but it had served its purpose. Now both were trapped in the bowels of Pharaoh's 9. Kraath approached slowly. The human looked broken, one arm hanging uselessly. Yet his gaze stayed steady, locked onto Kraath's face. There was no surrender in it. "You could have killed me," Kraath said. "Maybe," Ryker answered, voice weak. "But I needed you to see." "See what?" "That we don't stop either." He spat blood, then managed a rasping laugh. "You think you're the first thing the galaxy's thrown at us? We adapt. We endure. You burn us. We build from ash. You kill us and someone worse takes our place. That's what scares your kind, isn't it? That no matter how strong you are, you can't erase us." Kraath stood silent. The human's words struck deeper than any weapon. He'd faced armies, warlords, entire species, but never something that refused to break even when defeat was absolute. He turned away, scanning for way out. The tunnels stretched into darkness, collapsing in places. He could leave the human here, finish the mission, claim the bounty. But the thought felt hollow. Behind him, Ryker spoke again, voice fading. "You'll tell them, won't you? The others like you. Tell them what happened here." Kraath looked back. "What should I tell them?" Ryker's answer came with a faint, grim smile. "That we're the ones they should never hunt." The silence after that was long and final. Ryker's eyes closed, his breathing slowing to a whisper. The man had no strength left, but his defiance still lingered in the air like smoke. Kraath knelt beside him for a moment, then stood, expression unreadable. He turned and began walking into the tunnels, one heavy step at a time, the words echoing in his head. He had come to collect a bounty. Instead, he had found a truth the galaxy had tried to ignore. Humans were not the strongest, the fastest, or the smartest, but they were the most relentless. Somewhere above, the colony groaned under the shifting weight of its ruins. The air trembled with distant thunder. Kraath didn't look back. The tunnels burned with the smell of molten stone and charred metal. Kraath limped through the wreckage, dragging his heavy rifle across the ground, its barrel cracked from the blast. His armor was ruined, one eye lens shattered, the other blinking erratically. Each step was a contest between exhaustion and instinct. Behind him, the echoes of the collapse faded into silence, leaving only the low hum of the reactor buried somewhere ahead. He didn't know how long he had been walking, minutes, hours, but time had lost meaning. The human's words clung to his mind like a curse. "We don't stop either." Even now, Ryker's voice haunted him, low and steady, a whisper that refused to die. Kraath had hunted across hundreds of worlds, killed without hesitation, erased enemies without thought. But this man, this fragile creature of blood and bone, had left something behind that no weapon could destroy. The passage widened, leading into a cavern lit by a dim orange glow. The reactor core still pulsed at the center, its containment fields flickering. A figure stood near it, leaning heavily on a metal beam for support. Kraath froze. Dane Ryker was still alive. His uniform was shredded, half his body burned, but he hadn't fallen. Somehow, he had crawled his way here, refusing to yield even to death. Kraath stepped forward, his voice rough, almost reverent. "You should be dead." Ryker looked up, smiling faintly through blood. "You don't know us very well." Kraath raised his weapon, but the motion faltered. There was no triumph left in the act. He'd come here for a hunt, not an execution. Why keep fighting? The reactor's unstable. You'll die for nothing. Ryker coughed, a harsh sound that turned into a laugh. Nothing? You still don't get it. This isn't about one man or one battle. It's about the next time your kind, or anyone, thinks humans are easy prey. He gestured weakly toward a blinking console near the reactor. That transmission's already sent. Every mercenary channel out there will see what happened here. They'll see you bleed. They'll see a human stand against you and make you doubt yourself. The words hit harder than any weapon. Kraath's gaze shifted to the console, then back to Ryker. You planned this from the start. I planned to survive long enough to make it mean something. Kraath's jaw tightened. He wanted to deny it, to tell himself that the human's defiance was a final bluff, but deep down, he knew the truth. This man had turned his own death into a message powerful enough to reach the stars. The floor trembled. The reactor's hum grew louder, its glow intensifying. Alarms wailed, echoing through the cavern like a chorus of screams. Kraath took a step closer. Deactivate it. You'll destroy this entire sector. Ryker looked past him, to the faint shaft of light filtering down through the cracks above. His voice was quiet but unwavering. If it means they remember, if it means they hesitate the next time, they'll know what we are. For the first time in his long career, Kraath felt something alien to him. Admiration. The human stood unarmed, dying, yet unbroken. There was no plea, no panic. Only certainty. He lowered his rifle. You've already won, he said softly. Ryker's eyes flicked toward him, surprised but not moved. No. You'll win. You'll walk away. That's what predators do. But when you tell them, when they ask why the great Kraath Vel'Thor failed, they'll remember my name. Kraath's throat tightened, though his species was not built for such emotion. The reactor's light grew unbearable. Energy flared across the chamber, wrapping everything in a crimson halo. He turned toward the exit, but paused. You have my respect, human. More than any warrior I've faced. Ryker's voice followed him as he limped away. Then remember what that respect cost. Kraath climbed through the collapsing tunnels, each step carrying him farther from the growing heat. The ground shook violently, chunks of rock crashing around him. At last he reached the surface, emerging into the ruined colony under a sky streaked with the glow of a dying star. Behind him, the world shuddered one final time as the reactor went critical. The explosion was not a roar, but a bloom of silent light. The colony was consumed in an instant, dust and fire sweeping across the horizon. Kraath stood at the edge, watching the light fade. For a long time he said nothing. The human was gone, his body erased, but his defiance remained like a scar on the universe itself. Hours later, the Vor's Edge broke orbit, leaving the desolate world behind. Kraath sat in the cockpit, helmet removed, his reptilian features carved in shadow. The transmission beacon still blinked on the comm panel, Ryker's final broadcast spreading through the mercenary networks, untraceable, unstoppable. He could have deleted it. He could have silenced the warning. But he didn't. He played the message once more. Ryker's voice filled the cabin, calm, resolute, human. To anyone who thinks humans are easy to break, don't hunt us. Don't test what you don't understand. We may fall, but we don't bow. Remember that. The recording ended, leaving only the soft hum of the ship's engines. Kraath leaned back, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. Every constellation seemed to watch him in silence, each one now holding the weight of a truth the galaxy could no longer ignore. When he finally returned to civilization, the mercenary bars fell silent as he entered. Veterans whispered his name with unease. He no longer carried himself with arrogance, no longer wore his victories like trophies. The scars across his armor told a story none dared ask about. One night, a young bounty hunter approached him, a bold one, fresh to the trade, still drunk on dreams of glory. "Is it true?" the youth asked. "You faced a human? Killed him?" Kraath regarded him for a long time, his yellow eyes dull beneath the dim light. He set down his drink, the glass trembling faintly against the metal counter. "I faced one," he said, "but I didn't kill him." The young hunter frowned. "Then what happened?" Kraath's voice dropped to a whisper, low enough that only those closest could hear. "He taught me something I should have known long ago." "What's that?" Kraath looked into his reflection in the drink, scarred, older, no longer invincible. He met the hunter's gaze and spoke with the weight of something more than fear, something closer to reverence. "Never hunt humans." The words spread through the bar like wildfire, repeated from table to table, voice to voice, until it became legend. Kraath rose, leaving his payment behind, and walked out into the cold streets of the mercenary quarter. Above him, the stars glimmered faintly, each one a reminder of the species that refused to die quietly. Somewhere out there, across countless worlds, others would hear the same warning. Some would laugh. Some would scoff. But the wise, the ones who understood what survival truly meant, would pause. They would remember the mercenary who came back scarred, speaking of a fragile species with unbreakable hearts.